it's kind of a snide song asking Mr. Jones, there's something going on here, but you don't know what it is, do you? And Mr. Jones has kind of become a straw man or an archetype even of the clueless. Um, Highway 61 Revisited was released in 1965. And there was a lot going on then that Mr. Jones didn't understand. The Voting Rights Act was enacted in 65. The war in Vietnam, I think in that year, Lyndon Johnson increased the troop level by 50,000. We were up around 150,000 troops in Vietnam in 1965, on our way to 500,000. All right, sorry. Ah, thank you. I'm used to the bright lights, but this is. Um, so, 1965, the Voting Rights Act, the anti-war movement, um, the times were definitely a changing, as Bob Dylan said. And there were a lot of people besides Mr. Jones who were just at a loss. Race relations, I was raised in Detroit. Race relations were terrible. I graduated in 67 in the year of the riots. And there were people that in my family and that you knew as well that just didn't understand what was happening. And to make matters even worse, Mrs. Jones was starting to talk back. So, men had a lot to deal with. Fast forward, it's difficult to consider how much has changed and how little has changed. How little progress we've made. Perhaps some of you saw the poster of this, looked like an 80-year-old woman. I can't believe I'm protesting the same shit. It just never ends, And who knows about Mr. Jones? He could have had his own issues. He might have lost his job at the newspaper in a merger. You just never know what was happening with Mr. Jones. I hope that now the Mr. Joneses of the world are tuned in a little bit more and can help us, because there's a lot of work to be done. We need to be interpreting the times. And for women, too, we have to be interpreting the times. There was a weird ad in this past election season that was a gun control ad. And it had this young woman saying how important it was for her to be able to have a firearm. And I thought, this is really weird. You can defend your body, but you can't control it. It's weird. So, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they're trying to figure out what's going on as well. And if they were going to seek out a place, going to try and find a community and clarify their values, where would they go? Well, we think C3 might be a good stop. And I want to kind of unpack this whole sentence of what are you doing here to maybe be an encouragement to Mr. Jones and to all of you, because I think we're doing something remarkable and wonderful here, and together we can keep doing it. What are we doing here? Well, this is a values-based community with a mission to inspire and empower our members in their quest for a good life. And that's really what it comes down to for us. We're looking for something that's going to put it all together for us. And then we're freed from the theological boxes that we may have been raised in, and we're able to draw from all of these traditions and get inspired and find new ways to care for our world. What, what are you doing? Well, a vitally important aspect of our gatherings is discussion. And, maybe talk gets short shrift sometimes because people are action oriented. And we always say, all talk, no action. But talk means something. And one of the critically important things that we do is to give people an opportunity to examine their values and their points of view in a civil discussion. If you start out in the morning, there'll be a question there waiting for you from the person who's teaching for the day. And it's good practice to engage these questions and to learn how to listen. And we all try not to be a Budinsky or a Yabut, but it takes practice. And we keep doing it every week. And those questions are formative for us. And it's different than going and just listening to a sermon and complaining about it on the way home. Maybe if someone hits a nerve, we've done you a favor and you'll have an opportunity to work out the way you think. It's hard working with you regular old visionaries. Exactly, yeah. So it brings me to the question of what are you doing? But, really, this is not the kind of community where ordinarily we would say to someone, what are you doing here? But because it's a way of saying, I'm assuming that on some level you're engaged. This gathering took how many people? David, you're always in. I come in at 9:00 and he's setting up. Marianne has arranged for the music. The sound guys are back there, the ushers, the greeters, the people who are on committees. This is a shared responsibility. Every week, there are things that take place without any heralding of it, but it has to happen, and people step up and they do it. And we all benefit from it. So it's good to remember that. Your life is important to us. And so we rely on each and every one of us flourishing. So as a community, we want to be about affirming you on your path, affirming your growth, affirming your membership and your participation. And we do that in so many ways. We flourish in so many ways. Because time's short. And like the reading from Mary Oliver said, the most regretful people on earth are those who felt the call to creative work, who felt their own creative powers restive and uprising, and gave to it neither power nor time. I could have been a contender. That's a sad situation to be in. I could have been a contender. We don't want that to happen to any of you. We want to see each of you becoming your true self because time's short. And it's serious, really, it is serious. I want to share just a short prayer that came out of the darkness to me in the midst of the Zen retreat. And it went like this. We had been meditating for a couple hours at that point, so we were really open. And then, as if from on high, came these words. Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken. Awaken Take heed. Do not squander your life. And I hope that that's how we all live, that we don't squander our life. Jennifer Attlee Loudon taught us a very important lesson when she decided she needed to move on. Imagine if she had stayed with us, and there's no denying that they would have been good times. We would have enjoyed her company. But she would not have been happy. She learned how to listen to the call. And I think we should all reflect on that, to honor that person in that situation who had enough courage to listen and enough courage to make the decision that her true self would flourish doing the work that was most important to her. So, what are you doing here? It's true, it takes a village. And like I said, it takes all of these people. But during the week, so many of you are living your values that I find it inspires us all. You've cleaned up the highway, published your novel, painted your paintings, worked in the wetlands projects, visited the sick, cared for the struggling, tutored in the schools, and marched on Washington and Lansing. By being true to yourself, you teach us how to live a good life, and we strive to be the change we wish to see. What are you doing here? It's easy to have a sense of place here in West Michigan, isn't it? We have the lake and the trees. That's one part of here. Here is one part of here, having this place to gather. And for some of us, this is a good place to have landed. Think of what our budget would have to look like if we were still trying to support the campus in Spring Lake. It just wasn't doable. And I think this was such a wonderful solution for us. It's what a community center is for. And so this was really a good move. And this place, I think, is special to us now because we've grown together in so many ways here. But, when you get down at the lake, it's really important to have that perspective. You see that horizon, and you realize that here is everywhere. That to just have that expansive feeling and perspective, I think, is something that I hope that you all take advantage of. Here and now, we're learning to seize the day, to be there for each other, to delight in each other. And so we're going to keep that conversation going. I look around the room and I know that there is a role, there is a place for each and every one of you. And it's a richness to be in community with you and to continue to grow and to learn. I have total confidence in this community. And as we start to think about selecting a leader, my personal view is that what the situation calls for is someone who will honor the distributed leadership that we already have in place, and there will be more of a facilitator than a leader. I've grown suspicious of the whole charismatic leader philosophy. One person is not going to do it for us. One person who's going to be very fortunate to be called into this community and given the privilege of identifying the talents and the resources that are available to us and helping us find a way to put it all together. So let's get to it. Thank you.